Hey guys, we've been here for about 4 days now. If you hear any sounds, that we're doing demo right now. Been working really hard, and we're going to be here another week and a half, and we're going to show you all that we've accomplished. But yesterday we had Kirk and Lauren from Masters of Plaster come to visit us and assess all of our plaster downstairs, upstairs, decide what is salvageable and what is not. Kirk is going to come back here in a couple of days and secure the medallion in the dining room, make sure that stays safe. But we had a chance to sit down with them and basically interview them, learn about plaster, and we thought you guys would love that information. So we're going to share that with you now.
Yeah, I've got a plastering company, Dillon Construction Services, and probably about 22 years ago, we saw an advertisement in a restoration magazine about a product called Master of Plaster, talking all about the great benefits, how it bond is, load-bearing painted surfaces, how you could seamlessly repair cracks in plaster and missing areas and not have to use bonding agents. And when it was brought to my attention by the gentleman who used to run our Charleston office, he asked me what was my first thought, and I said, well, I don't believe what he's saying. You know, we don't have materials that do that. And we decided to buy a pail, a base, and a pail of finish, and just kind of see what it would do. And about 4 months later, he called me back and wanted to talk about it, and said, you know, it kind of looks like it does what he says it's going to do. You know, let's use it on a small project, which we did. And from there, it just blossomed to where we started using it on all of our restoration projects. And our Charleston office has probably had a hand in probably 95 to 98% of all the historic restorations of the buildings down there. From City Hall to Market Hall to Gibbs Museum to every church down there. So we became a big user of it and became very good friends with Mike Kempster, whose family went back 400 years in the plastering trade to England. Sir Michael Kempster was his, or Christopher Kempster was his forefather, and worked on Blenheim Palace, worked on Windsor Castle, worked on St. Paul's Cathedral. And probably about 60 years ago, his family stayed in the plastering trade all these generations. They developed Master of Plaster just for their own use. And Mike is the one that started selling it to the public. And it was very much a mom and pop organization, and became very good friends with Mike. And unfortunately, about 12 years ago, he came down with terminal cancer and had no children, nobody to pass it on to. So he called me up on the phone, and so I agreed to buy it from him, and we moved it down from, he lived on a small town, Essex, New York, on Lake Champlain. Oh, wow. We moved everything down to Columbia, South Carolina, where our main office is. And so we do all the manufacturing of it, and we've actually extended the lines. He just had originally had a restoration. We've got Venetian plasters, veneer plasters, we do slate lime plasters and everything that we do. We've got lime wash, we have polished plasters, pigmented plasters. We sell it throughout the United States and Canada. And so it's been a lot of fun getting involved with that, but we, again, use it in all of our restoration products.
I came to the trade, I came to an appreciation of the trade from my father.
Yes, so he had no children, but you do. You have to pass it down
to. We are all three of us are entrenched in the trade, so we all consider ourselves second generation craftsmen. But growing up, you know, as a female, you weren't really taken to a job site or taken to a construction site, but we would always go and see Dad's projects after the fact, you know, when they have the grand reopening or like the big event to, you know, reopen the different historic structures. So I really got to see the work and really built an appreciation for historic structures in my childhood. But then I went on to do an undergraduate degree in landscape architecture at Virginia Tech. And actually my 5th year thesis project I based in Charleston, and I actually worked alongside Mayor Riley. So that was a really neat experience and exposure. I really got to delve into more of Charleston's historic structures. And so from there, I decided I wanted to do a master's in urban design with a focus in historic preservation. And I actually did my research studies over in Ireland. So moved to Dublin when I was 24, lived in Dublin, and they actually have an amazing body of work on their plasters, which I feel like we kind of lack in the trades in America. So I actually was really able to research about plaster as an art form and as a craft, and actually, read about Michael Stapleton, which is probably one of the most famous Irish plasters. So that experience, being exposed to plaster more and more of the vernacular architecture, but then also being able to study and research and see. I'm very hands-on, and I love to be more artistic, and I do a lot of our color development and color design. So to be able to kind of see it as not just a trade or a craft, but as an art form really helped kind of bring me back into kind of having this passion for plaster.
Plaster has been around over 4,000 years. And it was just recently, and when I mean recent, the last few hundred years, that gypsum plaster came into play. It used to be, it was all slate lime plaster, and your scratch and brown coat that you build up with sand and some type of animal hair, horse, boar, whatever they had. And then the finish coat to give you the smooth, there was no sand or animal hair in it. In the late 1700s, going in strong into the 1800s, gypsum plaster started becoming, and it's a hydraulic material. And for people that don't know, hydraulic means that you start with a powder, and as soon as you add water to it, it's got a chemical reaction, and it's going to start to set. You've got usually 20 to 30 minutes to work with it, and at that point, it's set up so much, whatever you don't have up's not going up, and you have to mix more. A hydrated product, lime, is by absorbing carbon dioxide, which is much slower, more working time to work with it. And so what they did was they started using gypsum plaster, and it was always a sanded gypsum plaster back then. Sanded gypsum plaster has advantages. It's very dense, but it's also very heavy. They have perlite plasters now, like Structolite and Gypsolite, that you can use. They're very much lightweight. They're less than half the weight of a sanded gypsum plaster. The insulation value is much better. The fire rating is much better. So if these are concerns that you have, then that's important to use the right type of gypsum plaster for the project that you have. What you've got to be careful on old homes like this is the exterior walls are balloon framed. And what that means is that is allowing air to pass in and out on purpose. Plaster is very good about breathing. People don't understand that. It takes moisture in, it lets moisture back out. High humidity periods, it soaks it up. No ill effects. When it's dry, it brings it back out. And anything that you do to stop that movement of moisture is going to cause problems, whether it's a non-breathable paint, whether it's sealing that air core that you've got, that balloon framing. So you've got to be very, very careful when you're dealing with historic lime mortars on brick buildings. You don't want to stop that breathing, that movement of air moisture in and out of the building, because it breathes just like we do, in and then out. So you've got to be careful with it. So as far as insulating exterior walls, understand people want to do that, but you got to be careful on what you're doing, and you have to allow it to still allow moisture in and moisture back out, so you don't have ill effects on the plaster on the inside of your wall. People, I think, have a false sense of thinking it's cheaper just to tear the plaster out, because they're going to put electrical, they're going to put plumbing, they have to cut into the wall. We have some cracks, we have some water damage, we have some, maybe it's delaminated or fallen out. But by the time you add up the cost of the labor to tear it out, the cost to get it out in a dumpster and get it to the landfill, and then going in and doing the drywall and finishing it, you're not saving the money that you think you're saving. Most of these plastered walls that you look around, this house is a perfect example. Fixing the cracks, scraping the paint off, and going back over top of it. We can use plaster washers and screws where it's delaminating but still in place. But going back and replastering with a very thin veneer coat, you're not losing the relief and detail on your baseboards. Your crown moldings where you have plaster, where you have medallions, where you have window trim. With drywall, you start losing all of that. And it's a much healthier, a lot of people don't talk about it, the fact that the lime is constantly cleansing the air, because the absorbing of the carbon dioxide in the air is a continuous basis. It doesn't just last for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. It gives you very clean air. It's absorbing the carbon dioxide out of the air and giving you a very clean air. The acoustics are phenomenal. The plaster walls are always cool to the touch when you touch them. So there's a lot of advantages to plaster that drywall just can't give you. And you know, unless people just say, hey, I just don't want to have plaster, which I can't imagine why, tearing these walls out is to me just a huge, huge mistake. We can trench these walls, which we are at some point, so you can get your electrical and some plumbing in there. And fixing back that trench, that's going to be maybe 4 inches wide to 6 inches, is very easy to do. Why you tear out a whole wall to do a couple of trenches is beyond me. Because like I said, when you put in the cost of the labor and cleanup and taking it to the dump and they charge you for dumping it, you're not saving the money that you think you're saving.
And to build off of the CO2 and the lime cycle process, and another health benefit of the hydrated lime plasters is that it cures out to a pH between 10 and 12. So mold and bacteria cannot grow in a lime plaster environment. So they're just very healthy products to have and live with. With the plasters, I mean, they're just such beautiful finishes that a lot of times people prefer to leave it as the raw plaster coat. So at Master of Plaster, a lot of work goes into working directly with our clients or directly with designers and architects, and all through the color specification process. So we do a lot of custom color creations and really create these beautiful hues. And the beauty of lime plaster is that we're building out layers. So a standard application process is 3 coats, and it's a base coat, finish coat system. And so you really get this depth of color that cannot be achieved with a paint. So paints are very flat, they're very matte. To me, they read as a very dead interior coating. But there's just something with the lime plaster where it really kind of comes alive, it really responds to natural light. So the hue reads a certain way in morning light versus afternoon light versus in the evening light. So you really kind of get this sense of time with plaster, even on a daily basis, and you're working with these tinted materials. And now some people, especially in a lot of historic restorations, they want to go back with the original paint scheme, which is great, but you have to let the lime fully cure before you can prime it and then paint it. So, and an oil-based primer is always, you know, what we recommend to work with, and then painting it. So, I mean, that's always an option, but to me, you lose a lot of the health benefits, and then you also lose a lot of really that natural beauty that's really, you're paying for these quality materials, and then you really lose that essence of that lime plaster interior. There are a lot of different types of plaster, and and each has a different chemical composition, so it works different ways when applied, after the fact, and building a structure. So there's different reasons you would want to work with lime versus clay, gypsum, but we handcraft hydrated lime plasters, and it's actually derived of limestone, and it's burnt to an intense heat, and all the impurities are burned away. So once all the impurities are burned away, you're just left with this really rich lime. And once you add H2O molecules back into that formulation, it goes through this reaction. And then you let that lime putty age. And that's a process we call slaking. So the longer a lime is allowed to sit and age, the higher quality material it is. So once you take it out of that bucket and out of that pail and you actually apply it to the wall, not only is it drying out, it's actually going through a chemical reaction where it's reabsorbing carbon dioxide from the air. So when people, enter a space where our plasters have been used to create the walls, and they kind of walk up to it and they touch it and they feel it, and they say, this feels like stone, it's really, in essence, because it's completed that lime cycle on your surface. So it's really gone from limestone, we've manipulated it, added pigment, and then manipulated with how we apply it with our trowels, and it's really converted back to its stone state.
That was Kirk and Lauren Dillon, father and daughter team from Masters of Plaster. They are brilliant. I hope you learned as much as we did, and we cannot wait to show you all the decisions we've made and all of the progress that we're making in this house. Stay tuned.